Today I'm fishing with my old girl Tessa. She's a 10-year-old bulldog with a lot of sass and loves to fish. We're fishing a new area for me, a two-lake chain in a small state game area in West Michigan. The water is very close to a tannin color that you would find frequently in the Upper Peninsula, but is not commonly found here in the Lower Peninsula. I didn't find much action in the first lake, and with the limited amount of time available, I decided to move on to the second lake. The water was a bit high, and I think that made this little canal much easier to navigate. In the summer, I would imagine that it's too shallow in certain areas that you'd have to pull over. Unfortunately, I didn't bring a depth finder with me on this trip due to tests, so I don't know how deep this chain was, but I would imagine it's not deeper than 20 to 30 feet at most. Why I chose not to bring the depth finder with Tess will be pretty apparent soon. For now, let's just say she's excited.
Stop it.
I spent a lot of time fishing this little inlet, and I think it was wasted. I was getting a lot of hits from little fish that I just convinced myself were short strikes from something bigger. At a certain point, you just need to move on and come back if you really find it worth it. After confirming my suspicions about the small fish pestering me at the creek mouth, I started moving down the south shore of the lake fishing the many downed trees in the water. In addition to a swim jig, I'm also using a soft plastic jerkbait as an alternative to fish much more slowly around choice pieces of cover. Fishing it Texas rigged and weightless, I'm able to throw it in tight like a Cinco, getting the benefit of a slow fall, but also having the ability to impart a lot of action with very little motion on my part. If you fish a lot of bass, the punch trick is a valuable skill to learn to quickly unhook fish and get them back in the water. First, ensure the hook point is parallel to its entry point. Once you have it in the right place, quickly hit it with the palm of your hand to pop it out of the fish's mouth. One of the most important things to remember when fishing a soft plastic jerkbait is hook placement. You want the hook to be nice and centered in the bait, that way it doesn't affect the side-to-side falling motion a lot of them have. You also want to make sure that your hook point is either buried under a thin skin of plastic, or at least that it's flush against the bait to ensure maximum weedlessness around cover.
Shit.
Right about here is where I realized that I was missing a rod, or more specifically, my favorite all-around rod, a 7-foot medium St. Croix Abbot. Luckily, the tree that took it from me was nice enough to hold it partially out of the water. rod back in hand and the sun quickly dipping below the trees, I decided to move on down the bank and search for active fish. While the majority of my fish came on topwater and weightless jerkbaits, the best fish of the day was caught on a swim jig made by striker jigs. In Michigan, as opposed to other places I've been, the swim jig seems to mostly be a quality fish presentation rather than a numbers bait. When the water is a bit off color like in this lake, I always like to add a rattle to my swim jig to make it stand out a little bit more. This is particularly effective on river systems. On small lakes like this, with little to no development on them, I always try to target the down timber that you can find at intervals on the lake shore. While the fish you'll find won't always be huge, the potential for a big one to drag you deep into the thick of it is always there. On the north end of the lake, I found a healthy-looking lily pad patch that was in better shape than the others that I had found. I got a couple of hits on a swim jig and decided to give topwater a try. While it was a gamble early in the season, it quickly paid off for me.
Get back.
As you can see, it's one of Tessa's favorite fishing methods as well.
Ooh, look at that. Oh, it's the most wonderful time of the year. Oh, here we go. Yep. Get back. I love topwater.
As the day wears on, Tess gets less and less patient and well-behaved. While it can be annoying at times, it's nice to have someone in the boat as excited as me about getting on the water to catch some fish.
That was my hook from earlier.
The sun continued to dip below the tree line, and with it went most of the bites I had been getting. In the early spring like this, temperature shifts can make a big difference in fish aggression. I chose to content myself with the great blue herons and other animals that made the lake their home.
Oh, there we go.
With Tess continuing her war against the fishing lures, and the sun now below the horizon, I decided to call it a day. It had been a successful trip with no depth finder and little knowledge of the small lake chain in the middle of the country in Michigan. I encourage everyone to get out and check out these waters nestled into the heart of our state. You never know what hidden gems you may find.